it might not actually be that people are not able to speak, but they're afraid of speaking. So they are afraid of making mistakes, and that fear of making mistakes is actually attributed to a core aspect of language anxiety in general, which is the fear of negative evaluation. Even if you are able to speak in Chinese or in whatever other mother tongue language, Malay or Tamil, if you're afraid of making mistakes, you still wouldn't speak it anyway. And people, that might be misconstrued as that they're unable to speak well, but they're actually able to, they're just afraid to. And then that impacts their proficiency in the long run.
Hi guys, thank you for tuning in to PsychMic. This show is an initiative by the student marketers of James Cook University, where the group of us, healthily obsessed in psychology, attempt to bring in complex research into our daily lives.
In each episode, we dive into a psychological topic with a critical twist to see what gives. And without any further ado, let's dive right into it.
The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the speakers involved and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of James Cook University Singapore or any of its affiliates. This content is provided for informational purposes only and should not be construed as definitive legal advice.
Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of PsychMic. I'm Anandi.
I'm Rowan.
And we're joined by Nick, a PhD candidate at James Cook University Singapore. So Nick, would you like to tell us how you got interested in the field of psychology?
I got interested in the field of psychology when I was still struggling during my teenage years in trying to find a way forward in life, I suppose. And I found that the topic of psychology really speaks to me. It's very interesting to study about human behavior and, cognitive processes and stuff like that. Especially at such a young age, I'm always wondering why people, you hear these stories, right, on Stomp and on TikTok and all these kind of things, and you're just wondering why? Why would people do that? Stuff like that. So I think that's really what drawn me to psychology.
So would you like to tell us more about your PhD dissertation?
So my PhD topic is on mother tongue language anxiety in Singapore. So I actually began this topic when I first encountered it in person, back when I was an NIE research assistant. This was like 5-6 years ago, something along that line. And I was in charge of data collection in primary schools. So specifically primary 1, primary 3, and primary 5. And during this time, we were administering Chinese language or mother tongue language assessments, such as Chinese, Malay, and Tamil. Right. And during one of the Chinese language sessions, there was this demographic questionnaire that we were supposed to give the kids to do. And then this girl raised her hand. I was wondering why. I went over, was like, why you raising your hand? Is there an issue? And she's saying that she just straight out told me, I'm foundation Chinese. Can I don't do this? And that really shocked me at that point, because all she needed to do was write her own name in Chinese. Wow. Everything else was in English or in numbers. So, and when I told her that, and she started crying, she started tearing up, and she kept repeating, I'm foundation Chinese, I'm foundation. And I was so scared that people would think that I was saying something really mean to her. So I started to say, oh, it's okay, you don't need to do it anymore. Okay, let me bring you to your teacher and everything. And that really just got me thinking about why did that happen? And that was the first time that it happened. But I saw it happen again and again and again, intermittently over a series of sessions. And then that got me thinking to my own experience when I actually do not like studying Chinese myself. I've actually never passed a Chinese exam in my life. Even in primary school, I'm really bad at Chinese. And then it got me thinking, if this was like a phenomenon that was a national phenomenon to Singapore, right? So then I got into researching, and I found out that Singapore actually does have a really so-called declining crisis in mother tongue language proficiency, and it's not just in Chinese, but it's also in Malay and in Tamil. But over actually the past 2 decades or around there's been a very steady decline in our national proficiency and PSLE passing grades.
Damn.
Since 2000, if I'm not wrong, till 2024, which was the latest MOE bilingual education report.
Yeah. You're also saying it like in quotation marks.
Yeah.
So I'm figuring, since you really just discovered that in the wild, that's not something that has been like really explored so much.
In the wild, there's a very interesting ways to categorize it. So The reason why I'm doing mother tongue language anxiety in quotation marks is because it's not really our mother tongue, if you think about it. So in Singapore, our mother tongue languages are assigned to us by race or ethnicity, right? It's not really the language that we speak at home.
Yeah.
At home or as a first language. So in theory, actually, or in factuality, our mother tongue language is actually our second language. So the really accurate term here is second language anxiety that actually Singaporeans seem to be experiencing.
Most are still like English.
Yes, we got English atau Lingua Franca, and it is our first language, official first language in Singapore, as well as the common language that we use.
Yeah.
So I see you talking about Chinese, Malay, and Tamil. What about the lesser known second languages like Bengali, Hindi, and these are actually taught in primary schools as well. So what are the literacy rates like in those?
Also, that's another very interesting thing, a very interesting topic that I actually wanted to go into. But in PhD, there are many restrictions. One of it is time, and the other one is money. So because of time and money restrictions, I was only able to really go in the Chinese language. However, I did do some research on Tamil and also on Indian languages specifically. So they are called NDIL, if I'm not wrong, NTIL, non-Tamil Indian languages, right? So they are called, and they are actually afforded much lesser resources, if I'm not wrong, compared to Tamil, because Tamil is our official mother tongue language, whereas the others are not really official, right? You have, if I'm not wrong, and I have actually went out and did some preliminary studies with this before, or questioning before with the public, and it seems like you for NTIL languages, you actually have to leave the primary school to go to it. If I'm not wrong, yes. So like Punjabi, Bengali, what else?
Gujarati and Marathi, all that.
Telugu or something as well, right? So all these languages, and that when you go for O levels, you have to sit for it separately as well. So that actually makes me think like for Chinese, it's something similar where we have our dialects, right? Even though one is dialect in various languages, but for some of the Chinese population, we do speak like Hokkien or Cantonese or Teochew more frequently than Chinese language. However, our mother tongue is still our Chinese, still Mandarin, right, or 普通话. So yeah, so if for the Indian languages, I would say that it's also a declining rate, and that we should be seeing very similar results and very similar statistics on like the amount of anxiety that we have. However, there might be different contributing factors to it based on culturally.
That's like the under-researched part of the under-researched topic.
yes, exactly. I would really love to go into it post-PhD, but yeah.
I'm thinking of this meme here where mom is holding the child and one is drowning, and then the languages are the skeleton at the bottom.
Yes. Yes, I've seen that.
Yeah, I'm sure it plays out like that. But then going into like a whole new field where you kind of have to establish many things on your own, I imagine. How was that whole experience for you?
Establishing many things on my own as in questioning?
Yeah, and I guess generally it's considered as this second language thing, right? Where like your area of research is. But then you're establishing it as a specific Singaporean phenomenon as well.
Right. Yes.
Right?
So actually, Singapore is a very unique case study as compared to the rest of the world, actually. If I'm not wrong, there might be another nation that actually has something similar where they are assigned their mother tongue languages. I can't seem to remember it now because I researched about this like 3 years ago. But Singapore is definitely very unique, and there's very little countries that have this kind of bilingual education policy act. And what brings it together is that you see the same trends. So if you replace the word mother tongue with second language, it's essentially the same.
Yeah.
The reason why we tend to and we need to retain the word or the terminology of mother tongue is actually the same as what Lee Kuan Yew intended with the Bilingual Policy, Education Policy Act in 1966 or 67. which is to maintain our heritage. And because Singapore is a very multicultural society, and that we have a lingua franca of English, which is technically international, as a universal language, if we do not maintain our heritage through language, then we might just lose it altogether. So that's why mother tongue language education is so important in Singapore, regardless whether it is actually our mother tongue.
It's like to avoid controversies at home, but I imagine like in the international field, it makes it like more spicy, interesting. Like you have this separate term for the bit.
Yeah.
Does it?
Sure. Yes.
But I imagine, like, I'm from a multilingual country as well, but we really maintained our dialects, languages as well in Switzerland. So, yeah, I would feel it, like, intimidated or infuriated by, calling my own language, like, second language as well. So I can really get that.
I think that's something we have to learn from your countries as well, because how do you manage to keep it alive for so long, right? Because as you mentioned, it's a declining trend, right, about the literacy or even the proficiency in this language. But what about in the countries that we're from, in the European countries, they're able to understand or learn English while also keeping up the proficiency of their own languages. I think that is something that we can learn cross-culturally.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, you would have to look at the even more micro-y countries than Switzerland itself, because we already have like space to divide the linguistic groups, which I don't think would be a policy for Singapore. It's separating the language families. So I think you're trying to do exactly the opposite of that.
Yes. We're a melting pot. Everybody.
Yeah.
Yes. That's how Singlish actually began, right? Singlish is a amalgamation of like all three mother tongue languages, including English. So it's very
true. You hear all kinds of words that I'm not familiar with there.
Actually, I've been grouping literacy and proficiency together, but I actually want to clarify what you mentioned, that proficiency in these languages, like the speaking proficiency has been decreasing, right? But what about the literacy rates? Because I've heard from a lot of people that they're not able to speak their second language as well, their mother tongue as well, but they're able to write it. They're able to write stuff, they're able to do comprehensions, essays, and everything in it. Because of that's our education system has trained them. So, what do you feel about that?
So that's very interesting. So language itself, or specifically in my topic of language anxiety, the phenomenon of language anxiety, there's actually there are 4 language skills, right? As you're speaking, listening, reading, and writing. And the way that it is being categorized recently is that reading and writing are considered literacy, and the other 2 are considered oral. Okay. So when you're saying literacy rates, or when I'm saying proficiency rates, it's actually all 4. It's actually all 4, because we are basing that on the IPS survey that they did in Singapore. So that one is actually a proficiency, not just speaking proficiency, but it's a general proficiency of all 4. So that's something very interesting as well. So in our Singapore, I don't think there is a big difference between our speaking and literacy rates. So I think that people are not able to speak well, but they're not really able to write well as well. That's why PSLE passing scores are actually used here as to establish like a foundation baseline, because they evolve all 4. Right? So you see the same declining rate. Yeah, exactly. But the thing is that literacy is actually, and I have found that literacy is actually the most important aspect that we should be focusing on as compared to the oral aspects, because literacy and we see that very much as well in not just PSLE but in any language exams. The weightage of your composition and whatnot are much higher than your you call those speaking exams. Like oral exams, they're always much lower. Although it has sort of equalized recently, like over the years, but it's still not equal. It's still not equal, therefore, and therefore we can actually see how the weightage are being attributed to each of the language skills. So, and something very interesting. So, when you're saying speaking, people are not able to speak. Even if you are able to speak in Chinese or in whatever other mother tongue language, Malay or Tamil, it might not actually be that people are not able to speak, but they're afraid of speaking. So they are afraid of making mistakes, and that fear of making mistakes is actually attributed to a core aspect of language anxiety in general, which is the fear of negative evaluation. So it's like if you are, or Punjabi, whatever, if you're afraid of making mistakes, you still wouldn't speak it anyway. And people, that might be misconstrued as that they're unable to speak well, but they're actually able to, they're just afraid to. And then that impacts their proficiency in the long run.
Because you're not making like experiences.
Yeah, you're lacking in practice. So that kind of communication apprehension is one of the major parts of language anxiety that I am studying.
Yeah, I definitely encounter that all the time. I mean, my Chinese is dirt poor, but I'll tell everyone proudly that I speak Chinese.
Yeah.
Talk like incomprehensible sentences.
You have no fear whatsoever. No fear whatsoever.
Yeah, but I've experienced that so much. Like even in China as well. Like people will tell me, "Oh, I don't speak English at all." When and then later I can actually hear them like speak like comprehensible sentences. Like.
Exactly, yeah, and I think that has to do with some of our cultural context as well, where typically in Asian cultures we are more afraid to go out of the norm.
Yeah. So I imagine that can link really with the same anxiety in general. Do you want to tell us a bit more, like what aspects of it you're specifically looking at?
Okay, so in language anxiety there are three core aspects. Commonly, there are three core aspects. They are communication apprehension, there's the fear of negative evaluation, and there's test anxiety. So test anxiety has been studied quite a lot in Singapore already as it is, regardless of what subject it is, math, science, Chinese, mother tongue language and whatnot. But for the other two, it's much less known. I keep bringing this topic up to language scientists that I've met over the years, and they have in Singapore, and they have always told me that number one, don't call it second language, even if it is. Number two, no one actually looks into language anxiety because there might be this concept that if you are studying language anxiety, right, it sort of implies that there is anxiety. And if it's not a second language, it's a mother tongue language, it doesn't make sense for a mother tongue language to have anxiety because it is your mother tongue language. It's your first language at home. However, that's where things get a little bit weird in Singapore because our mother tongue language is not actually our mother tongue language. Singapore is actually our second language. And therefore, I kind of suspect that is why language anxiety has not been studied in Singapore despite over 20 years of declining proficiency in language, in mother tongue languages. 20 over years. And that's a lot of time. This is 2000, that's 25 years till today. And it's been going now. It's so nice that when you do a regression line, it's stripped.
Wow.
But that's how nice it is.
That's a cool graph for it.
It's a very cool graph, yes.
This means that clinging to tradition, right? It's kind of like, I would say, meaninglessly clinging to tradition is kind of holding us back in a sense. Is that true?
I would call it meaningless. I wouldn't say clinging either. I would probably describe it in terms of retaining our heritage in a multicultural society where our diversity is our strength. However, we also need to maintain our individuality within a collective, sort semi-pseudo collective country like Singapore.
That's very diplomatically said.
Thank you. I practiced it before. Yes.
Feel free to go.
It was very difficult to come out with that sentence. Yeah,
For sure, yeah. But man, the anxiety of studying anxiety, that could be like, researching itself. It sounds so meta. My God. That's what us psychologists do. We always overfix stuff. That is up.
yes.
And you're a prime example of that. So how does that go? Like you have completed long order analysis one study now, right?
Yes, I have completed. I'm almost finished with my first empirical study. Very interesting finding.
Yeah. How did that go? That whole process of it.
It was so draining. Yes, it was so draining.
Also young father here, but
Young father, yes, 7 months. Oh, I already is. Yes. So, so a PhD life is not It's not easy. And something I would suggest to future PhD candidates or people who are thinking about PhD topic, don't go into vulnerable populations like children. The amount of approvals that has to go through is ridiculous. Other people that do the weird sample, so the weird sample is actually like this Western European or something sample on university students mostly. It goes through really quickly. You can be done with your data collection within like a few months. Quickest. But for mine, it extended to almost a year because of the amount of times the amount of approvals I need to go through, and then the amount of physical work that I have to do. Like they do not approve on online questionnaires. So everything has to be done face to face, and you don't get approvals for a whole class of students at one time. Usually you get approvals for a little small group here, little small group there, and this group is in Jurong and that group is in Tampines. So, and you have to go there, even if it's just 1 or 2 students, because every sample size counts, every N counts. So, yeah, it was horrible. Yeah, always make a lot of funding allowances for your grad. You do not want to reach there sweaty and stuff, and you still have to be presentable as well. Right.
Singapore's not big, but there are many stations and starting the test places.
Oh, I can imagine it would be way worse in other countries, bigger countries. Yeah. So that's what I don't really regret it, but I kind of do.
Yeah.
It's hard work. It's very unnecessary hard work, but for the future of our Singapore children's language education, please remember.
I mean, at what countries that I have traveled to different countries in Europe to data collection, but that's our
Yes, equally yes. Yeah, another vulnerable population, international. We become remember our decision by remember us, Robin and Nicholas.
So the future generations, please remember to thank them, personally, because whatever curriculum changes you have, it's mostly thanks to you. Yes.
Actually,
And hopefully there will be changes, because this is an alarming findings, right? That is decreasing, yearly. So there's obviously have to do something about. Oh, and they will. With that, so why don't you tell me more about what policy changes you see in the future with your research?
So right now we're actually seeing a very positive change in curriculum and syllabus changes for mother tongue language education in Singapore, where our nation's education ministry is they are enacting a new approach towards language learning by going through something called a whole of society approach towards nurturing the joy of learning. So what does this entail? So what they are really trying to say is that they're trying to make mother tongue language learning more enjoyable. And that language enjoyment is actually a really huge variable that I'm actually studying as well as a mechanism to language anxiety in Singapore. We can't deny that there is language anxiety in Singapore. What we are trying to find out is what we can do about it. So language enjoyment is a very positive, very good and effective way forward. However, it seems that language anxiety has still not been accounted for within this context. An example is that in the most recent mother tongue language symposium, our language minister, our education minister, then I think they changed it since then, but then actually spoke about how primary school mother tongue language curriculums are now going to be focused more on songs and games and stuff like that. And it sounds all very very nice and stuff. In theory or paper, it sounds very nice. However, when this kind of comes into where I'm trying to say that they do not account enough or sufficiently enough for anxiety, is that imagine this scenario where you are trying to make have the group of students that your classmates sing a song together. What if they have anxiety? What if they have communication anxiety, which is one part of language anxiety? They do not want to sing. They would rather much write compositions or do anything or draw maybe, but it's still part of their syllabus. That would only aggravate their anxiety further rather than increase their enjoyment. They may still enjoy singing songs and things, but not in their mother tongue language, perhaps. So they may, and this has been shown in one of the studies in Hong Kong recently, I think in 2024, 2025, where they showed that there is actually a positive correlation, so a positive relationship between language enjoyment and language anxiety. And this has been sort of played around before by the pioneers of language anxiety phenomenon, where they talk about something called facilitative anxiety in language anxiety situations. However, I can say that in my sample population in Singapore of primary school children, we do not have that. In Singapore, there's a very, very clear negative correlation that the less enjoyment you have, the more anxiety you have. So by promoting enjoyment without accounting for anxiety, it will just go that way.
Yeah, I see that. Yeah. So before we arrive with these policy changes, Nick, how have you personally dealt with your language anxiety?
I failed.
Oh man. But I heard you talk way more Chinese than the
Yes, that's because I married a Chinese. So I was forced to learn. So there's a very good motivation there.
The adolescence is definitely
Love is a very good motivator, a predictor of better proficiency, at least in speaking.
Yeah.
I still can't write and very often I find myself taking out my IC to copy my Chinese name when I did though, right? I wonder if other people do the same sometimes, and this is a shared canon experience that we might have. So it's very yeah.
Let us know.
Let us know somewhere,
And you can tell me, go.
Tell us all about your experiences in Chinese in Singapore as a Chinese. Did you pass your PSLE willingly? And let us know.
So with that, thank you so much for joining us for this episode. I'm Anili.
I'm Robin.
And Nick.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.